we said was important for leaders to consider in these trying times was the element of trust within your team. So today we're going to explore the 10 elements that go into making up trust and what we as leaders can do to accelerate that process and make sure we've got as many of those in place as possible. As we look through these, we'll be looking at what they are, why they're important, what perhaps happens when they're not there, and maybe what we can do as leaders to accelerate that. So, trust comprises 10 elements, of which 4 go into making quick trust, which is getting the team up and running quickly and speedily, and those 4 are competence, openness, integrity, and reciprocity. We'll look at each of those in turn. Competence. Now for your teams, this should be a bit of a no-brainer, because competence in terms of trust is, do we believe that the people in question can do the job they need to do? Now in terms of your teams, of course they can. They could do it last week, they'll be able to do it again next week. One of the things they might need a bit of help with is how they do their job, because they're doing it differently using different tools, but their ability to do the underlying skill hasn't changed. So as a leader, just remind them that you trust them, remind them they can do what they're doing, remind them they're good at their job, and perhaps give them a bit of help with the how rather than the what. Openness. In teams that trust each other, people share information for the good of the team. And again, when times are easy, in normal circumstances, this is something that our teams are probably pretty good at. As we go through these unprecedented times, people are perhaps not sharing as much, or perhaps they're not sharing things because they don't feel they need to be shared. So bear in mind that if information isn't out there, it's probably not through any Machiavellian plan, but just because people don't realise that when they do it and they don't share it, that's a problem. So encourage people to share as much as possible, as often as possible. Integrity. Relying on people to do what they say they're going to do. As a leader, we need to be able to rely on our team. As a team, we need to be able to rely on our leader. And again, this challenge we face right now is often not about whether people are doing what they say they're going to do, but rather whether they're telling you about whether they have done what they said they were going to do. If it's not visible because they're no longer sitting next to you, you might just have to ask the question a little bit more often and make sure that people are clear that you need to hear when things have been done. Reciprocity. When we feel we're not trusted by somebody, we find it very hard to trust them. Likewise, when we feel we are trusted by somebody, we find it a lot easier to trust them. That works for you and your team, and it works for the members of your team as well. In order to create the conditions in which reciprocity works, you as the leader need to take the first step. You need to visibly demonstrate your trust in people, so that they feel trusted, and then they will know they are trusted, and they will then in turn trust you, and then they will in turn trust each other. Make sure therefore that when you are showing people that you trust them, you do so in a way that makes them feel comfortable. So we've got 4 elements of quick trust: openness, competence, integrity, and reciprocity. Once we've got that quick trust, the 4 cornerstones you see there, we can move on to the deeper trust that we're going to need as a team to get through the long term. Deep trust has 6 further components: compatibility, goodwill, predictability, well-being, inclusion, and accessibility. Compatibility. It's easy to trust people with whom we have a shared understanding, a shared history, shared values, shared culture. But where we don't share one or more of those things, compatibility becomes lower and our ability to trust becomes that much more difficult. So as leaders, I would urge you to look for those things that you have in common with your team. Find at least one non-professional thing that you share with every single member of your team, something you can have a conversation about over a virtual coffee once a week that makes them feel more human to you and you feel more human to them. They become a person, they become a real individual, we'll become more compatible with you and more compatible with us, and that helps us get a deeper level of trust within the team. Goodwill. Caring about our colleagues and feeling in turn that our colleagues genuinely care about us. The work we do can be stressful, it can be demanding, and at the moment it's probably more stressful and more demanding than it's been for a while. Therefore, we need to know that we can rely on the other people on our team to help us out when times are tough. As a leader, this is about your role modelling ability yet again. If you reach out and ask for help, you're more likely to make it safe for other people to reach out and ask for help from you, and reach out and ask for help from each other. We get a reinforcing set of behaviours where everybody recognises and steps in and does what they can to help each other out. Predictability. You've relied on the members of your team for however long to do what they're going to do. This is a little bit like the competence element we talked about earlier. They've always delivered for you in the past. The thing that's changed currently is the context, and that may have thrown some people into a flat spin. It means that maybe they're a little bit less predictable than they were before. Maybe you as the leader are a little bit less predictable than you were before. Maybe the Monday morning meeting isn't taking place in quite the same way, and people used to rely on that. So here your challenge is to just articulate to people why it's important, and if they do need a change in routine because their routine domestically has changed, that's okay. The new routine can be just as predictable as the old routine. Trying to stick the round peg in the square hole, the round peg of virtual working in the square hole of office working, isn't going to work. So let's build new routines, new processes, new procedures in our team to make it work virtually so we can be predictable for each other. Well-being. The feeling that I have nothing to fear from my team members or from my leader. When things go wrong, it's easy to point the finger and blame. But when you're on the receiving end of that finger pointing and blaming, it's easy to be afraid of the person pointing the finger, and therefore really hard to trust them. As a leader, therefore, we need to create the conditions in which people feel safe to make errors. Not sloppy, silly errors, but genuine mistakes from which they can learn. If they feel that they are trusted to make those mistakes because they don't intend to, and that you will not blame them for that, as I say to my children, make better mistakes tomorrow, the well-being and the feeling of trust in the team will increase. You may have to put up with a couple of errors, but in the long term it's absolutely worth it. Inclusion. Making sure that everybody feels as included as they need to feel. Now, some people are social creatures, extroverts, they need to be included in every video call, every conversation. Some people, less social, more introverted, need to be included in fewer of the decisions. But the important word there is fewer, not none. So as we are all physically excluded from each other, we're in offices, spare bedrooms, kitchens, living rooms, wherever we are, we need to be emotionally included, which means as a leader making sure you make the time to bring people into conversations where that's necessary and include them in decision making and include them in non-professional stuff as well. Accessibility. How easy is it for us to come to our teams with how we feel, and how easy is it for them to come to us with how they feel? At the moment, we're all feeling a whole bunch of stuff we may well have not felt before. Excited, scared, isolated, remote, under pressure, all of those things. And if we can't share how we're feeling with at least one other person in the team, we're going to start to feel remote, we're going to start to feel disconnected from the team. So as a leader, you need to create the space for people to be open about those feelings. Maybe in a one-to-one, probably will be in a one-to-one rather than a team call, but you may need to prompt the process by telling people how you're feeling, sharing your emotions, sharing what's going on with you, and being okay to be vulnerable. Vulnerability-based trust is the trust that lasts longest, and it's built on the accessibility of emotional feeling and engagement. So, we have 10 elements of trust. Not every team will be top of the shop on all 10, but if we look at them and go, okay, what is it that I can do to improve the well-being feeling in my team? Am I making it safe to make mistakes? Are we demonstrating reciprocity? Am I finding things in common with my team? All of those little small things, when you add them up, will create more trust more quickly, more deeply, and will allow you and your team to come through this unscathed.
For more information on how we can help your business during these unprecedented times, contact us by visiting our website www.inspirationaldevelopment.com or email us on info@inspirationaldg.com. From short digital masterclasses to full turnkey digital development solutions, we're here to support you.